check. I think I reconnected my LinkedIn.
Oh, okay. All good. It's fun to go through the like remote nuances happening nowadays. Maybe we're live now.
No. Good. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, Kevin. I think we just did the whole intro without being live, so we'll just do it one more
We
for
can
the
restart the
audience.
intro. I certainly fumbled a bit,
Oh,
so we can
was it-
redo it anyway.
All right. Anyway, guys, we have Kevin White here from Common Room, but Kevin has not only been at Common Room, also at Retool and Segment. And I think all of these three companies that we've just mentioned are some of the, at least for my part, some of the software as a service companies that I really, really admire. And as I said before, either Kevin is just really good at picking companies, or he's actually also really good at contributing to their growth. And that's why I'm really happy that you said yes, Kevin, to join us and to share a little bit about your framework for doing marketing at these places. But maybe what is the 1-2 minute introduction to your career path?
Yeah, I don't know how much I can attribute my contribution to the growth of those companies because they're like phenomenal companies with like great teams. But I certainly feel lucky to have been at them and uh, somehow stumbled upon like choosing companies that are revered and also scaled and very successful. So part of that was that segment. I was using the product before and a big fan of the product, and that is kind of what convinced me like, oh, this is a really cool product. I'm going to join Segment. And then Retool just kind of like saw the potential there. I saw us using those like internal tools at Segment, and I was like, oh, this is actually a pretty big market here. And then they're much more than that now. And then kind of similar story now joining Common Room. I'm like, okay, I've had really good track record and like learned a lot, and now I want to go back to like marketing to people who I identify with. Like, I'm my own end user. I feel like I can like have subject matter expertise, and so it's been really rewarding joining a company like that in Common Room and like seeing that like early signs of success, kind of like the same feel as when we had when Segment was like very early. So couldn't be happier. And I'm a user of the product. I demo the product. I do a lot of sales like demos for the product because we're early stage and everyone's doing a lot of things. So
Nice.
it's good stuff. Yeah.
Maybe so the Common Room. Maybe you can just explain that technology and like who are you trying to get in front of with Common Room's technology?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of like a hot space right now. Like there's this like signal-based selling or like warm outbound, or there's even like the older like intent vendors. It's kind of like this space of like there's all these signals happening across like digital breadcrumbs that your people are doing across all certain stages of the funnel. And these are potential customers and potential signals that are not capturing with like your traditional, go-to-market tools like a marketing automation platform and a CRM. So what we do really well is aggregate all those signals together and then in one place in Common Room, and then also do like the identity and enrichment on top of that. So not only do you know where these signals are taking place, but who's the person behind the signal, if they're in your target accounts, and you can find the right people within all that noise to go after or to market to or to help out because they're a customer, like all this kind of stuff. So combining those two things, signal plus identity, is like a really powerful thing, and that's kind of like where we're positioned in the market.
Is it the sales teams, the BDRs, or the marketers that you're selling to predominantly?
It's a mix of all go to market. We started off as a community platform where it was like, pulling in signals from community sources like Slack, like GitHub, like LinkedIn, like Twitter, just, the broader sense of community. And now we started pulling in product usage data, website activity data, job change tracking, like all these kind of signals across all parts of the funnel. So, it starts with the SDR and sales revenue leads. Like that's the bulk of where our customers are coming from, but it's also like marketing demand gen, especially if there's anything related to pipe gen, and then post sales even too. So it kind of spans like all of go to market.
Super nice. I think it's we're actually maybe we're looking into building something similar, so I'll make sure we get it on the list. But Kevin, you suggested today to go with the title of going outside the box to scale growth, which I really liked, because I think most of us marketers have been used to for the last 5-10 years, is just figure out a plan and then throw money at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, etc.
Yeah.
So, but what were you thinking about, like drilling into this topic of like let's step outside the box instead of thinking about the traditional channels that people work with?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like there's always like arbitrages outside on the fringes that, if you can, I'm always like on the hunt for that kind of stuff as from having a growth marketing background where I'm like, okay, this is status quo. Like Google search is status quo. Facebook paid ads are status quo. I mean, there's ways to like stand out and like do better there, but it's like, what can you do? Like what's outside? Like what are your competitors not doing that you can like leverage and grow like faster? Or I don't know, you want to use the word exploit, but it's like, what are the ways that you can like scale and do so in like a super economic way? And like, also it's more fun. It's more fun to go outside the box than just doing like traditional, like Google search ad campaign or, Facebook retargeting. It's like, I mean, that stuff works, and it could work for the right business model and the right company, but it's just, I think it's more fun, and I'm always like trying to look for that like extra leverage or extra edge. And so it's a thing that I'm like pretty, I don't know what I'd say like passionate about, but I'm just like, okay, like it excites me to go outside the box and see if I can like think of a better way, a more efficient way to like grow this business efficiently.
Nice. Yeah, super nice. How did, when you like, once you have to start up this motion, then what is kind of the process you go through? So just
Yeah.
start by saying, I can't go to Google or LinkedIn as the first resort. What is you would do with a team to operationalize it then?
I like that as an exercise. That's like I feel like that's a good interview for a growth person, is like, okay, tell me how you're going to scale this, but you can't use Google and you can't use Facebook,
Yeah.
or LinkedIn. Like, I feel like,
Yeah.
those types of things. So yeah, the way that I would go about thinking about, or the way I go about thinking about this is like, it all comes back to like first principles of marketing and first principles of go to market, really, which is just like, okay, let's reset and go back to like, who is our audience? What pain points are we solving for them? Like, how are we different than the market? I mean, we were talking about this before, is like kind of like the April Dunford kind of framework for positioning. And like, if you have this kind of like core base, or this core like kernel of like, this is our hypothesis, or this is our thesis of how we go to market, then, and everyone's clear on that, then you kind of like can start to go on the fringes and figure out like, okay, this is our audience. Like, where does what watering holes does our audience hang out on? Do they follow this newsletter? Do they follow like these creators? Are they going to these conferences? Like, what are the triggers that are putting them in market? And if you start thinking from there, then you don't have to resolve always to Google or Facebook or whatever. Like, yeah, if they're using Google search because like that's the way they become into market and find your brand, great. But oftentimes they're like, oh, I'm following this person who is an influencer in the space, and like there's a way for you to like jump in. And this is something we do at Common Room. Actually, we have like a lot of people, like our own brand is not super distributed. We are trying to still build up our audience. I'm still trying to build up my audience, but out there that reach the core customers that we want to reach, and they have like thousands and thousands of followers. And so we can partner with them and be like, hey, like our product's pretty cool, what do you think about it? Like, do you want to partner? Do you want to like promote us? And like that is a way for us to like reach our core audience without like having to go to the confines of paying the vig to Google or paying the vig to Facebook. Like those are the kind of things that we're trying to look for, and it's all based back on like first principles of like, who's our audience and how are we trying to help out that audience.
I think that's really good advice. I don't know if you have seen that TED talk by Seth Godin and the book he made called Tribes, but I typically think about it's a low resolution TED talk, so it's quite old by now. But he talks about tribes as well, like identifying tribes as that kind of thinking about people. And if then the thinking is that, okay, if we're targeting surfers, then like there's a few surf spots around the world that is famous. There's a few conferences. There's a few influencers. There's a few podcasts, etc. So by really deeply understanding what kind of tribe of people that it is that you're going for, then you don't need the world's largest marketing budget, because if you just show up on those key spots around the world, then to the surf community, you might seem very large. And I guess it's the same thing you're saying here, Kevin, that like with a well-defined description of who we're targeting, we don't have to be everywhere at any given point of time.
Yeah, I mean, now you're really speaking my worlds of surfing. Like if you're not on, if you're a surf brand and you're not on Surfline, which is like the only thing that I use for then you're kind of like non-existent to me. So yeah, totally get that.
Surfline, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the theory of like, you're if you narrow your audience and like have a really good understanding of what your serviceable addressable market is at the time, it's pretty easy to like map that out into like the different channels of like where you can reach that audience, and then saturate them with your message and make it unique and helpful and all the kind of things. But like then you're a big brand to that smaller group, and it seems like you're a lot bigger than you are, and it's also like hyper efficient way of deploying funds versus putting billboards up on in San Francisco and New York, which is like probably like 0.001% of your audience that's driving by is like your actual target audience, right? So anyway, yeah,
I think you said something just before, Kevin, about like, didn't you said something about when people are stepping in market, or kind of, I guess you use these, in a lack of better word, influencers to kind of raise the awareness about what it is that you do. But you then also work specifically with them about creating the demand, or like what makes them actually wanting to buy after having consumed some kind of information that you put through these people.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it we kind of the objective is not always like direct response. Like the objective is sometimes like, okay, there's this audience out there that we want to know about us, but they don't. And so for like, and this person can reach that audience. So like, let's work through that person to just make our brand and make our solution known. So it's not exactly like a trigger that puts them in market. It's more like a trigger that goes from like absolutely nothing to like, oh, I know that brand now, and I know that product, and that sounds interesting. And so, yeah, we haven't gone to the point yet where we're like working with creators and other people around like creators or newsletters. I kind of like group all these things in like a similar category bucket, but we're not to the point where it's like a super transactional, like, here's this link, here's this UTM to share. And we're going to track everything based on like, what's the cost per sign up? What's the cost per demo? It's like, we're not quite at that stage yet. And like, also, it's kind of hard. Like what I think people really miss with the whole like creator, or I hear a lot of this from creators, is that like, they're working with a brand, and the brand is like really precious about like, their message, what they want them to point to, all this kind of stuff. And I kind of like defer to the creator themselves of like, okay, your audience even better than we know your audience. So like, here's where we're coming from. Like, can you come up and put something in your voice? And then so like that actually gets far better performance, in my opinion, than trying to force like your message through this other channel,
Yeah, I know that from the podcast I'm listening to, when it's this sponsored message that you can hear is just produced. That's like my brain completely shuts off. But whereas if it's the podcast that I trust and I listen to on a weekly basis, that are in their own words,
yeah, if it's a live read, like, it just feels like natural, like it's almost part of the whole podcast. Like I listen to a lot of podcasts as well, and like when that's the case, I still skip over it, but like I'll listen to more of it, or we'll be we'll get caught off guard and like, oh, this is an ad. I feel like the Acquired podcast does a good job of that, where like they're telling value and telling a story, and they're the people who are sharing the story on behalf of their partner, versus like, some dynamic insertion like thing that, was recorded, months ago, and just like cookie cutter, like boilerplate messaging,
Yeah. I would love to hear your thinking a little bit about how to do this investment then, or like the budgeting part of it. Like, how much can you bet on these awareness exercises, in lack of better words? Or it's not that you necessarily have to measure everything. I'm just very curious about how do you think about deploying budgets towards these things?
Yeah, I mean, the approach is typically like what's it called, like crawl, walk, run kind of approach, where it's like, for any, I kind of have like a threshold in mind for like, what is the minimum viable budget for this experiment, and like, typically try and make that like, under $5,000, under $10,000, just to like get a sense of like, did this thing work or not, which makes, big bets maybe a little bit challenging. But for this like creator program, for example, that we were running, it was like, okay, well, we're going to spend $5,000 a month. We're going to we're going to find like a few people who are, reaching our audience, and then, pay them per post. And then we're going to look at like, not even like, did someone sign up and raise their hand for a demo request? We're going to look at like, okay, did the people reacting to this, are those people in our core audience? And like, are they getting value out of this post? And that was like the early signal of like, okay, this could work. And then we'll figure out the measurement stuff, at a later time, like still like within a reasonable amount of time. And now we're looking more at like, okay, asking people how they heard about us, like trying to do some tracking. And one thing that's really nice about these kind of earlier programs too, or like going outside the box, is that like the cost for them is not, it's not so saturated. So it's like pretty cost efficient when you're going into these channels that are like not optimized in the way that like Google and Facebook are, because we know that they have tons of engineers and tons of firepower and like tons of experience around like how to extract the most money from the people who are advertising. So it's like kind of a losing game, or it's like super inefficient for those channels where there's like so much competition and red water.
Yeah, that's my experience with newsletters as well, that it's not an efficient marketplace. So you can find newsletters that are high quality at a low price, which you should definitely just go for. And then it seems like, for me, it seems like the big newsletters, they have kind of figured out that this needs to be a very, very expensive thing. But all the smaller niche micro newsletters, etc., you can be lucky if you like survey 10 or 20 of them to find some good good prices in there.
Yeah, and also one thing that's interesting about that is that the bigger newsletters have like a massive following and a massive subscriber base. This goes for everything, like YouTube, LinkedIn creators, newsletters, all in that bucket. And like oftentimes the people with or the newsletters or whatever the distribute, they have like a larger distribution and charge more, but then like the results are kind of the same versus someone who's like speaking really like narrow to your core audience and like just has like a really strong following, but a small following. Like that actually performs a lot better. And it makes me think like, okay, there's got to be a lot more people like this, and even maybe people with even smaller audiences. Like, how do I scale that? And it's like, it's a really hard thing to crack, and it's almost like you got to like brute force it for a while until you like, get the reps in to like figure out, okay, like anyone with under 10,000, followers on LinkedIn, like that are speaking this like message, like that's actually where the best like engagement is coming from. So like, how can we like scale that? Or like this newsletter with like 10,000 subscribers is like great. Like, how do we find more and more of those? So that's the kind of things I'm like looking for all the time.
Do you run like a manual list, like just in a sheet where you put in these, like this person could be a good one to do a collab with?
Yeah, there's not really a platform for it. I mean, I think there is on like the consumer side, like business to consumer.
It seems like it's consolidating a little bit there.
Yeah, there was one I used to use called SwapStack. I don't think they're around anymore, but like they kind of had that idea. But yeah, I think it's not the best market. So yeah, it's kind of like you have to do a manual list of, here are all the people, here are all the newsletters, here are all the ways that we're doing distribution outside of the clients.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's a little bit what Spark Rand Fishkin and Spark Toro is trying to do, that you can kind of type in topics and then they will give you people that talks about it.
Yeah, they I love what they're doing over there. They are really good at like surfacing or like helping you identify the right people, but I don't know about like it's been a while since I
haven't played around with you.
But like they might give you a way to track that too, or like build those partnerships, but identifying them is like just hard alone. So that's a Spark Toro is something you can definitely use for, finding the people who are influencers on Twitter or, talking about certain subjects and stuff like that, for sure.
Are there other, so that's that groups of creators, newsletter people, are there other buckets of or channels of traction for growth that have your attention at the moment?
Yeah. I know we're kind of like
It's probably a lot.
going down that like creator route, but there's
Yeah.
it's a good point. There's certainly other things you can be doing. One of the things that I think a lot of like marketing, especially like demand gen, is moving more towards is like how do you help out your outbound SDR team, and like these things that have been like decoupled, historically are now like merging together because like I think the MQL is kind of like going away as a metric, and like everyone's kind of aligning around pipeline, or at least like I think that's the better way to evaluate all of go-to-market performance is like centered around like this predictable like metric that'll like turn into closed revenue.
Mm.
And so like I think of marketing, and the SDR team is like on the marketing team at Common Room. So that's kind of like an interesting thing. And so like I think of growth not as like, marketing and inbound only, but like, the whole spectrum of things. And
Yeah.
so one thing we're doing at Common Room, not to like talk about Common Room too
Oh, it's
much,
good.
is finding these signals that are out there in the marketplace, like pricing page visits, people changing jobs. We're running this program now where it's like finding topics on LinkedIn, that data in the Common Room for our sales development teams.
Ooh, nice.
And so these are all signals and triggers and plays that we're like packaging up, and like marketing is helping with like identifying the signals, surfacing the signals, and then like helping with the personalization of the email. And so the SDR
Mm.
team is just like trying to find the right emails and right accounts, and then like running plays on top of that. And that is working really well for us.
Yeah.
And like the new modern way that people are going to market. Like that's why there's a lot of hype around this space, right? It's because that's like a new, more efficient way of doing things.
And how much of that process that can Common Room automate? Do you need
Pretty
can
much like end
Common
to end.
Rooms? Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I just published
Yeah, I saw you
yesterday.
posted. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like pricing page visit to like finding the right filtering down to like, is this pricing page visit from a target account and like the person behind it, and then like sending that to an automated, outbound sequence is all done through our identification and workflows. So
I'll just go and pick up that and put in the comments here.
nice.
I think that was a
Um,
really good one.
while you do that, there's one other thing that like worked really well for us on the outbound SDR side of things. And this I think Guillaume from Segments,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Segments and like, yeah, Guillaume. Uh, he does this really, really well of like finding all these different data sources and then doing like prospecting and then like automating all of that. So it's like a fully scaled automated SDR outbound. I think he's done that really well at Ramp.
Mm.
So that's something that that I kind of learned from him that we're doing at Common Room as well, which is like, I feel like, outbound, the key to outbound is like not personalization, because like personalization kind of gets grouped into um, like here's your alma mater, like congrats on this new role. It's like it's all what's in it for me and not what's in it for the end user. So,
Mm.
if you reframe, your thinking there of like what value can you provide, and can you show it through your product? Like that's where I'm looking for like the best like angle into an account. And so an example of what we did at Common Room is like we can ingest public data signals from Twitter, from GitHub, and so
How about
we'll
Slack?
yeah, Slack is not public because it's like I couldn't go into a competitive Slack channel and like pull
Mm.
in that data. So you have to be like in the Slack community, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Um, we ran this program around public channels where we're like, okay, our target account here is really interested in like, this GitHub repo that they own, and so we'll pull in all that data and be like, hey, did you know that like we'll take screenshots of it in Common Room and be like, hey, did you know that these target accounts are like, active in your GitHub repo? They're having issues. You should probably help them out. Maybe they're a customer, and like that as a carrot to like, take a meeting or respond and be like, oh, I didn't even like, I was completely blind to this. Like you added a lot of value and like, I want to know
Mm.
more. Like that, giving like those little like carrots as part of outbound is like super, super effective. And so I'm always looking for like those kind of opportunities. And like, if you can show value in your product through those like outbounds kind of sequences, then like,
Yeah.
I think much better return on reply rates.
No, definitely agree. Have you How much have you been looking into this, like mail delivery post that Google were doing? And how much do you think that will kind of
The
like they've started, like, if you get marked too much as spam, they'll lock you out of the Gmail Google Mail
yeah.
network.
I thought it was for all Gmail, and it's only personal Gmail right now. So it has to be like, the Gmail domain, as far as I
Yeah,
understand. But I was like, wow, that is like really, I mean, for those outbound sequencing things, like if you do it at scale, like that is a pretty big risk still. And it's like,
yeah, that was what I was thinking.
I think it'll still trend to like them doing that for G Suite in general, because like, spam is spam, and like it doesn't matter if you're using a Gmail address or like your corporate email address. If it's running through Google, they're
Yeah,
probably gonna they're probably gonna flag you if you're abusing your email list. But I was like, wow, that is very aggressive. Like, I'm like, I don't even know if our inbound opt-in like onboarding emails will hit that threshold of
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
strikes people unsubscribe, and I'm like, or mark things as
I think it
spam,
was
and I'm
like
like,
0.3%. That
yeah, you're
would
kind
be
of like
enough to.
beholden to like adding value. I mean, it's great. It's great in the sense that like you have to add value.
Yeah,
I get that, but I'm like, ooh, geez, this is challenging. So then, you know, it also kind of makes the case for like going outside of the inbox, like going into LinkedIn, going
yeah.
into Slack communities and stuff like that, and like trying to find signal in other places. Because like I think the inbox is going to be, it just gets more and more challenging to reach people.
That
So
was my thinking as well, that you would have to find other ways to deliver the message than besides the classic inbox.
yeah, and we kind of see that too at Common Room, or like that less and less people. It's not even the inbox. I guess it is the inbox, in that like you get someone's opted in email to like send them a message, right? But we kind of see that like less and less people are opting in, or they're like doing a bunch of research up front, and that research is
Yeah.
like some public. It's on like different social networks, it's in like different communities, and like that part of the funnel is like expanding, and there's a lot more education happening outside of like someone who's opted in. And so like
Mm.
now
Yeah,
market
you
motion.
need to be really good at listening to signals
Yeah,
across the board.
exactly. So yeah, I think that is kind of like the direction the market's headed. Like, less people opting in and more like trying to find signal outside of your marketing automation platform.
Super nice. Okay, let's. The last thing I wanted to ask you is kind of what are the marketing bets then for 2024 for Common Room? What are the things that you're excited about in your go to market at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we kind of like talked about. I'm really excited about we've seen a lot of really good results with our creator program.
Yeah.
Um, Working with people like Peter On, Anthony Natoli, Leslie Venetz, like these are some of the people we've been working with, and like we're seeing
Mm.
a lot of good traction there. Jed Merle's another person who's great, and so like I'm like, okay, can we continue to expand that? I feel like there's a lot of
Mm.
promise there, and we're still like very early stages, or maybe like getting to the walk stage, and I want to get to like the run stage faster.
Yeah.
Uh, the other thing is like we at Common Room has just kind of like developed like a more of a platform approach across all of go-to-market. And so, it's a new, the whole like signal space is getting crowded. There's a lot of talk around it. There's a lot of,
Mm.
disdain for like the old like intent providers, because like they don't add identity to it. And so I'm seeing this whole space emerge, and like, as much as I don't want to create a category, because like categorization seems like a nightmare, it's
Yeah.
developed into this category space, and it's like a new thing, or a new a completely like new way to do go to market. And so like I'm excited for that space to develop, and for us to be the leaders in that space. So that is like certainly exciting. And then the other stuff is
I
the
think it.
SDR stuff we talked about. Yeah.
I think it's interesting, Kevin, as well, what you're saying. Like, yeah, account level information. Okay, it's better than nothing, but it's not before you can kind of join that within the behavior of an individual that you can really start acting on it. Is
Yeah.
that what I'm hearing you saying?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you have account level data from Salesforce, and you're trying to sell into Salesforce, like, who from Salesforce, of their
Yeah.
60,000 people, are you going to reach out to? Who is that intent signal coming from? It's like, it's pretty worthless. And like, I feel like it's almost better. like that account level data, it's almost better if reps just like ignore it and then just focus on like their core target accounts and like trying to get to the right person on those target accounts, because that other signal, that other account level data sometimes becomes a distraction from like where they should be really focusing. And but that really changes when you have identity attached to it, where it's like, okay, I know this specific person, they're showing this buying signal, and like, how can I reach out in a contextual way that addresses that buying signal and helps them out? And like that is like with the game changer. Whereas like, I think, yeah, you'll get a lot of these, the older like account intent signals. They're almost built for like more marketing teams that are like, okay, here are all the target accounts that are like active, or like, you know, doing a Google search and then landing on like a tech target page or whatever. And it's like, you know, what is the actual level of vendor? I don't know, but like I can plug them into my advertising platforms. I can plug them into Google. I can plug them into Facebook. And like, that is my way of doing account-based marketing. And so it's kind of like, it was set up in a way that like is in the paradigm of like, this is a demand gen person's world, and they want to like take that data and plug it into their ad platforms. But it's really serving the salesperson because there's no identity attached.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. All right. It's time for more coffee for you, for sure. If people want to like speak with you or get in touch, where should they? What is the preferred inbox for you?
LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's the best. I mean, you can reach out to me at Common Room. It's kevin@commonroom.io. But yeah, LinkedIn. I'm trying to grow more of a LinkedIn following, so that would be great if people follow me there. And then, you know, I love doing like these kind of talks and podcasts. We even do our own too. So, you know, if people are out there, I'm up for doing more of this stuff. It's super fun and like not a lot of overhead. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Common Room, yeah, there is a start for free option. So if you're curious, then go down.
Yeah, we have a free trial, and then we have a free version, and like, you know, and it's pretty generous free version in my opinion. And like, you can connect a few sources, LinkedIn, Twitter, Slack, whatever, and just start getting data in, like, and that's kind of like the best starting point is like, you know, you're blind to some of this stuff, connect that stuff, and then like see what signal you get. And like, that's probably my suggestion for like any kind of starting point with Common Room. So
wonderful. Kevin, thank you so much for spending the time here. And I think there's a few of the things you said that I'll need to go back and listen to once more. But have a great day, everybody, and thanks for listening in.
All right, thanks everybody.